Hi, I'm Bill Bruckrup, Artistic Director of Antaeus Theater Company, and welcome to the Antaeus Book Club. In this edition, we talk about August Wilson's play, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. This is a reading that we did in Classicsfest way back in 2012, but we're excited to dive back into it. We're very honored to have the director and lead actor of that production. She played Ma Rainey, and that is Saundra McClain. And in the conversation, she and former artistic director Kitty Swink delve into all things August Wilson and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Please enjoy.
But this evening we'll be discussing Ma Rainey's Black Bottom by August Wilson. Antaeus presented that as a reading as part of Classics Fest back in 2012. And as many of you may also know, there was a recent movie this year, an adaptation of Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. So it seemed like a good moment to talk about it. That was with Viola Davis and the late Chadwick Boseman. And we're very thankful to have Saundra McClain, who was the director of the reading and who also played the title character in the reading at Antaeus and has played it elsewhere in full productions. And before we jump into the conversation with Kitty and Saundra, Mary Alex has put together a little presentation that we can look at just so that we can all learn a little bit more about the play. So Mary Alex, if you want to share that. Okay, great. So to start, we have this is a clip from a CTG production from 2016 that starred Lillias White. We just wanted to show it. It's the song that the play is named after. Thought it might be fun to watch together before we get started.
All right, boys, you done seen the rest. Now I'm gonna show you the best. Ma Rainey's gonna show you her black bottom.
Hold it. Okay, take 3. Ma, let's go without the intro, huh? No voice intro. You just come in and say,
Urban, I done told you the boy's going to do the intro, and that's all there is to it. He don't stutter all the time. Just give him a chance. Now, Sylvester, you just relax and concentrate. Relax and concentrate.
all right. Take 3.
1, 2, you know what to do.
All right, boys, you done seen the rest. Now I'm gonna show you the best. Ma Rainey's gonna show you her black bottom.
They got a friend they call Dancing Sammy. He's crazy about all the ladies dances. Black bottom dancing, 2 babies pressing. The other night at a swell affair. Soon as the boys found out that I was there to say, come on, boy, let's go to the cabaret. When I got there, you ought to hear them say, we want to see the dance you call your black bottom. I want to learn that dance. Come on and show that dance you call your big black bottom. It puts you in a trance. All the boys in the neighborhood, they say your black bottom is really good. Come on and show me your black bottom. I want to learn that dance. I want to see the dance you call your black bottom. I want to learn that dance. Come on and show the dance you call your big black bottom. It puts you in a trance. Heard the last moment about the break of day. Grandpa told my grandmama I heard him say, get up from there, show your old man your Now I don't show y'all my black bottom. You ought to learn that dance.
I just realized I was still muted, and I think that production also, that scene also featured someone who used to be an Antaeus employee, Lamar Richardson. So let's see. So just for a little bit of background on August Wilson, he was born August 27th, 1945 in Pittsburgh. His upbringing in Pennsylvania has influenced his work throughout his career. He eventually founded a theater company called the Black Horizon Theater in the Hill District of Pittsburgh, where he grew up. He's best known for a series of 10 plays collectively called the Pittsburgh Cycle, which chronicles the experiences and heritage of the African-American community in the 20th century. His works delve into the African-American experience, as well as examinations of the human condition. Other themes range from systemic and historical exploitation of African-Americans, as well as race relations, identity, migration, and racial discrimination. 2 of his plays received the Pulitzer Prize for Drama, and 2 of his works won the Tony Award for Best Play. Since his death in 2005, 2 of his plays have been adapted into films, Fences in 2016 and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom in 2020. In 2006, he was inducted into the American Theater Hall of Fame. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom was written in 1982 and is one of the 10-play Pittsburgh Cycle chronicling the 20th century African-American experience. The play is set in Chicago in the 1920s and deals with issues of race, art, religion, and the historic exploitation of Black recording artists by white producers. The play opens in a Chicago recording studio as Ma Rainey's band players, Cutler, Toledo, Slow Drag, and Levy, gather to record a new album of her songs. As they wait for her to arrive, they tell stories, joke, philosophize, and argue. By the time Ma Rainey arrives with entourage in tow, recording has fallen badly behind schedule, enraging producers Sturdivant and Irvin. As the band waits for various technical problems to be solved, Levy and Cutler come to blows. Levy is then simultaneously fired by Ma and rejected by the producer, and in a rage fatally stabs Toledo, destroying any possible future for himself. The play premiered at the Eugene O'Neill Theater Center. Its Broadway debut at the Court Theater in 1984 won a New York Dramatics Critics Circle Award and garnered a Tony Award nomination for Best Play. In December of 2020, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom was released on Netflix with Viola Davis playing the title role. Chadwick Boseman co-starred as trumpeter Levy in his last performance prior to his death earlier in the year. The film was produced by Denzel Washington and directed by George C. Wolfe. Washington hopes to produce the other 8 plays from the Pittsburgh Cycle following Fences and Ma Rainey with Netflix in the coming years. Of August Wilson's work, Viola Davis says, "He captures our humor, our vulnerabilities, our tragedies, our trauma, and he humanizes us and he allows us to talk." So here we have some photos of our guest speaker, Saundra, and you can see in the center photo, she's portraying Ma Rainey at the Alliance Theater in Atlanta. The other 2 are photos of productions at Antaeus, the Malcontent and Wedding Band. With over 40 years as a performing arts specialist, Ms. McClain has worked in all aspects of the theater discipline, both as an actor and director, performing in numerous shows on and off Broadway, films, and several guest starring and recurring roles on television. As an actor and director, she's been nominated for several Ovation and NAACP Theater Awards. In 2019, the LA Drama Critics Circle Award for Best Lead Actor in a Play. She still finds time to develop a children's book and film series, Peepo and the Magic Talisman. She has taught, guest directed at Queens College, California Lutheran University. I think I said that in a strange way, California Lutheran University, AMDA, AADA, Pomona College, and California State University, Fullerton, and is currently pursuing her MFA in directing at CSUF. Saundra is currently directing a production called Living 6 Feet Apart And she's directing 91331 Pacoima for our second season of the Zip Code plays here at Antaeus. And that's entitled Gold and Shine by Carrie Wyatt. So with that, I will turn the conversation over to Kitty and our wonderful guest, Saundra, to talk to us more about Ma Rainey's Black Bottom.
Yay. Saundra, I want to start by thanking you for doing this tonight. Thank you for joining us. So nice to have you. Oh, you know, you're a company member and we love to have you always, but this is particularly nice. I want to start by asking you about your history with August Wilson and this play and why you picked to have us do it in Classicsfest when you did, and your experience doing it at the Alliance and all that.
Oh, wow, that's a compound question.
Yes.
It's interesting. Let me see. There's some things I can't say, but I've done 4 of August Wilson's plays actually. But I think Ma Rainey, the reason why I had picked it for Classicsfest was because it was the only play I've ever did that I got a mixed review. And I got a mixed review, not because of my performance, but because one of the critics said I was too attractive to play the role. So I'll take that critic. I'll take that. And I thought, now that I'm older, or when, at least back in 2012, I felt that I could be the character without pushing for the character. She's sort of she's very hard and what's the word? Domineering sort of personality, but when you're playing her, you start to push that, as opposed to the way I see her, hiding that vulnerability that was a part of her. And I think I have a better understanding of her as I got older. And I think a lot of that had to do with also the way August wrote her too. But at the same time, for a woman in her time, she had to be tough.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, but I don't know if but I felt like I was playing too much of the toughness back then, as opposed to how I would approach it now, especially how I would direct it.
You were probably, when you did it, you were probably the same age as she was when she was recording them, but women age differently now than they did at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she died relatively young. I mean, I think she was like, I don't even know if she was 50. I think she died in like 39. She was born in like 84, 86. So I haven't added all that up. What is that, like 50 something, 51 or somewhere around there?
Yeah, that seems right. That seems right. So the play falls in the 1920s, which was the time of the Harlem Renaissance. And it's so interesting to me that he wrote the entire cycle, lived in Pittsburgh, except this play, which lives in Chicago, at the same time that sort of the greatest flowering of the early part of the 20th century for Black American art was happening. Why do you suppose he chose, because of Ma Rainey actually recording in Chicago, why do you suppose he picked to put the 1920s play in Chicago? Do you have any sense of that at all?
Oh, well, mainly probably because that's probably where she recorded. She recorded for Paramount, what, I don't know, like 100 songs.
Wow.
In the course of her career. And she probably recorded in Chicago. New York wasn't really part of the Chitlin circuit very much. So, but going up and down like the Mississippi, that area around in there, I think that was more of her
milieu.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Chicago was a big jazz town back then.
It was a big jazz town. And she was one of the first recording artists to cross over to white recording companies, isn't that?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she was the first big record. In fact, that's why they call her the mother of the blues, because she pretty much, I think she was pretty much the first one to record and to record and really make a living at it. She was making big money back in the day. Yeah. And she would, when she would tour with this group called The Rabbit Foot or something. It's interesting because Leslie Lee wrote a play called Rabbit's Foot, which is based on that company, which is a really good play. They toured. They were like a minstrel and vaudevillian theater troupe that toured all around mainly around the South. That's why in the play she kept saying, I don't want to come up here anyway. She really liked staying down South where she felt she was really appreciated. And like around 1927, 28, 29, her popularity was starting to wane anyway.
Because the style of music was moving on to
it was
more hardcore jazz, from blues to jazz more.
Yeah, yeah, and more, more towards big band, that whole bit. So they weren't into the, excuse the expression, the gut bucket sound so much, and that's where she was coming from.
Right. She was really instrumental in making that style what it was in our minds, and I think in this a lot of Bessie Smith, a lot of really famous.
Bessie Smith, Big Mama Thornton, all those, but they were part of it. Like you said, if you talk about a milieu or genre, they were part of a very particular style of singing. But think about it, she sang with Tommy Dorsey. She sang with a lot of those big bands back in the day. We just those records haven't survived.
Right. Wow. Fascinating. So I know from talking to you the other day when we did a little pre-meeting that you feel like that August Wilson and to a certain extent Lorraine Hansberry sort of became the known figures in the canon of Black American theater, and you feel like there's a lot of playwrights that are missing in people's minds.
Oh God, yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because I think it's so, because you did choose to pick this play to bring to Classicsfest, and it was a huge success, and he's certainly a huge success, and Denzel Washington is committed to doing all these movies of his plays. But let's talk about all those playwrights like Alice Childress, who you've done one of her plays for us. There's a lot of great playwrights that came out of the Harlem Renaissance, and then after that, out of a lot of other wonderful companies.
The Harlem Renaissance, the playwrights back then, those plays don't translate very well for today's audience. They weren't as well trained. I mean, you're talking about like Zora and Langston Hughes and people like that. Their plays aren't really, I'm sorry to say, they aren't really that good. They would have to be more than updated and fixed. But the playwrights of the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s were really well trained, had something to say. For example, August wasn't the only one that wrote a play cycle. Charlie Fuller wrote one. They were called In Our Many Names and Days. There are 5 different plays. Leslie Lee, oh my God, Leslie's work is just gorgeous. You know Zaki, but Zaki was mainly a poet. There's Derek Walcott. There's Ray Arana, who wrote, what's the one about the 2 sisters? The 2 old ladies. God. Anyway, my brain is not functioning. Bill Gunn, brilliant playwright. I was really blessed to have done his last play that Joe Papp directed. We did it in workshop, and then unfortunately Joe passed before we could mount it. But the cast was it was Gloria Foster, myself, Michelle Shea, Joe Morton, Novella Nelson, probably people you don't know, but they at that period in time, at the top of the 90s, 80s, we were like at the peak of basically our careers back then. And the cast, I haven't even mentioned all the names, but it was a big cast, but it was a great play. I did another one of his plays that Joe directed, Joe Papp. Did I say his last name?
You did, yeah.
Called Forbidden City, another fabulous play by Bill Gunn. I covered, but Gloria Foster did the lead. And that was a great play. You see, did I say Ron Milner, Richard Wesley, Ed Bullins. I mean, the list can go on and on, P.J. Gibson. I mean, really great playwrights. and they don't get mentioned because every time you turn around, it's like when somebody thinks of a Black play, they think, oh, let's do Raisin in the Sun. I mean, Greg had to argue with me to get me to play the part because I just got tired of doing Raisin. I'm sick of Raisin in the Sun. I mean, how many times are we going to do Raisin in the Sun? To me, it's like Seagull. I'm sick of Seagull. I couldn't sit through another Seagull if you paid me. I forgot what I was saying. You set me off on tangent there.
So why do you suppose August Wilson and Lorraine Hansberry become?
Oh, Lorraine Hansberry and August Wilson, because I think because of his partnership with Lloyd Richardson up there at Yale. I really do. That was the pipeline. I mean, everybody that came out of Yale, it was like they had their foot in the door for success.
Right.
You know, all the actors that went to Yale, all the playwrights that came out of Yale, and Lloyd was their mentor, huh?
Charles Dutton played
Yeah.
Levy. Yeah.
All of them. But Viola went to Juilliard.
Not a bad place to go.
Huh?
Not a bad place to go. So yeah, so they just sort of, and everybody else just gets pushed off to the side.
Yeah, and there's so many wonderful stories out there that tap into the Black experience and don't have the N word every other word. That's the only problem that I have a lot with August's his work. I sat through one production on Broadway. I swear to God, which one was it? 2 Trains Running, and I with a pad and pencil, and I counted how many times they said the N word. So I was 101 times in the first act.
Wow. Wow.
I don't know what his obsession was with the N word, especially since he was biracial. So there you have it.
Okay. All righty then. Wow. So now I'm going to go back to Ma Rainey now that we've settled the fact that there's a lot of playwrights that we should be looking at. And I think that's a really
Oh, I wasn't saying it for that reason. In fact, I made a list just in case you wanted to know.
Good. I'll take it. And if anybody would like to have the list, we'd love to. Yeah. I mean, I have plays that I remember so specifically from my first years in New York. Soldier's Play.
Yeah, Charles Fuller.
Yeah, Charles. Yeah. There's I made a list too of plays that we just don't remember anymore and people don't do anymore. That was the first time I saw Denzel actually was in that play. But now I'm going to go back to, I'd love to have you share that list with us. That would be great. And if anybody would like it, we'll be happy to send it out. That would be wonderful. Thank you. So then I'm going to go back to Ma Rainey. So it's called Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and she's certainly the central figure of the play, but in many ways, it's the band's play.
Right.
It's Slow Drag and Levy
and Toledo and Cutler.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's their story, especially Levy's story more than anything else.
Yeah. And the fight between Levy and Toledo. And Toledo's the only character in the play, I think, who is literate. Is that he's the only one who can read and write, I think. Yeah. No,
Cutler can.
Oh, Cutler can. Okay.
Because he was sort of like the band manager.
Yeah.
Also in our production, Kenny Leon played Levy. So yeah, which was an interesting production because that was when he first took over the Alliance Theater when he became artistic director there.
Wow, that's interesting.
Mm.
So why do you think he called it Ma Rainey? And she does. I mean, she does drive the circumstances of the play, and she is both the hero and a monster in a sort of way. But why do you think he calls it that? And then, like Julius Caesar is the titled character, but he's dead, you know.
Because everything spins around her. I mean, and we're talking about a record too, but everything sort of, it spins around her. It's her band. She's the leading vocalist, Black vocalist during that period. The band all work for her. So And they're there to record that song, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. So.
Right. Right. And how was it to play? Because I know you talked when we first started chatting just now about how hard it was to push to be that difficult character, how much you had to push that, where you felt when you were doing the play originally, how hard it was to push through and you were up against that thing. But she also is really supportive and dear to her nephew.
Mhm.
And she tries to protect some of the band, and her girlfriend she's supportive of. So she's a really interesting set of juxtapositions of monster and hero at the same time. Can you talk about what that was like to play, and when you came back to it to direct it and do it for us, did that inform you in a way that it hadn't when you were a younger person and trying to find the difficulty of the character?
I think one of the problems I had, at least to be honest, is playing an iconic figure. It's always hard because you're trying to copy what you think that person sounds like or how that person might work. You get caught up in the how and not playing the truth of the situation. And I got very caught up. At least from my point of view, maybe nobody else noticed it, but I know I was never comfortable in Ma Rainey's skin when I was playing it. I just kept I kept watching myself play the character. And that's what it was. I was playing a character as opposed to portraying or living the character on stage. And I feel like I'm smart enough as an actor when I know the difference. When I had the chance to direct it, I was so caught up in making sure everybody else was where they were supposed to be for entrances and exits, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't have time to think about whether I was playing or not playing it. Just say my lines. Huh?
You were just trying to get it done.
I was just trying to get it done, but I would have loved to have had an opportunity to go back and look at that character again. Because I think now, I am tough. I don't have to be tough. I don't have to play tough. I can just look at somebody and be tough.
Yes,
seriously, as opposed to feeling like I got to look at someone. You know what I'm saying? I don't have to look at them. I can just look at them.
Yes, that's true. I've shared a dressing room with you. I know that's true.
Oh, I'm a barrel of monkeys. I keep everybody laughing backstage.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. So everybody in the play, all the guys in the band and Ma all have these sort of iconic speeches where they,
my God. Some of the best speeches are in that play.
It's incredible.
Some of the best writing is in that play.
Yeah.
He doesn't get as much. I'm glad that they did this as a film, but I feel like it's some of his best writing is in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, as opposed to. See, my pet peeve with most of August's writing is that most of the time he puts women in the kitchen and they're making biscuits, but Ma wasn't in the kitchen and she wasn't making biscuits. She was out there hustling and making money. I just wish she had had a monologue that was as insightful as Levy's.
Yeah.
Or Toledo's or Cutler's. They have some of the most beautiful, and Slow Drag, they've got some of the most beautiful monologues. I shouldn't say monologues, speeches. I hate monologues because they're not talking by themselves. That he's ever put down on paper. Now, I must admit in his other plays, in Seven Guitars, there are like three monologues in there, three speeches in there that are just gorgeous. And Viola's speech where he touched me here and he touched me there. It's stunning, but I got to play Louise on Broadway opposite, Keith and Viola. And I'm telling you, the character I played, I had half the time I didn't know what she was saying. It was all over the place, but that's the way he wrote her. And it was funny. She was funny, but she was just all over the place.
But Ma does have a line that every time I've seen the play twice, and I saw the film. And she has a line that always stays with me, and it's, I'm going to misquote it, but it's something like, yeah, they want me to record the music and they're all really anxious. Yeah. And then as soon as they have the recording, then it's like I'm a whore and they roll over and pull their pants back on.
Yeah.
And
but it's a short monologue. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. She doesn't have one of those like Levy's speech where he's cursing out God. Is God here? Where's your God? That's, and Chadwick's rendition of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've seen 4 men play that part. That was brilliant.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, even when I was watching it, I kept wondering if he was dealing with his own situation when he was saying that, because it was just so, it just wrenched my heart out. I think it was Toledo's monologue where he talked about the guy that got off the train and they wanted him to tap dance. I mean, August is an incredible storyteller.
Yeah.
Besides, you know, as a playwright, he's an incredible storyteller. I just feel like Ma only had like a monologue that was about this long.
Right.
Which means, and like I keep saying, he writes really fantastically for men, but he doesn't really let us women rip.
Right. I mean, the only play I think where he does is Gem of the Ocean. That feels like he does in that play, but it's a more woman-centric play than most of his plays, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was late in his life. That was like his last piece.
Yeah, except Radio Golf, I think.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
About that one.
Okay, I'm not going there.
I didn't say anything.
You know, I agree with you. So
now you talked about knowing August. I remember when August was just thinking about Gem of the Ocean. We were at a party at my agent's, Brett Adams, and he was talking about writing a play about, because I said I would have loved to have met the woman that was supposed to be 400, 300, 400 years old, that was mentioned, because I was doing 7 guitars at the time, that was mentioned in the play. He said, oh yeah, I'm working on that now. I'm writing a play that focuses around her. And I remember saying to him, oh, please keep me in mind. Please keep me in mind. That's what I wanted to say, but I didn't. But I wish I had.
I wish I had too.
Gorgeous role.
So can you talk a little bit, because I think a lot of people have probably seen this film, the changes from they shortened it a lot. You know, George C. Wolfe's adaptation. Yeah, of course. But they also, the other day when we were talking, you talked about the 2 things they added that bothered you, which was the hotel scene, and I'm gonna argue with you about that one, because I liked the addition of the hotel scene, but also of the sex scene between Levy and her girlfriend.
Well, here's the thing. That's why I wish we hadn't had the conversation the other day, because the thing I want to talk about, you already tell it. So
well, you talk about it. Talk about it.
There's a couple of things. First of all, in the play, it didn't happen in the summer. It was in the winter in Chicago. The hotel scene, because there aren't any lines. There's nothing that's said. There, it's like, what was he trying to accomplish in that scene? I think I got it, but I didn't get it. They were just sort of walking through the lobby and people were looking at them. Well, why were they looking at them? Because they're Black, or was it because she's with a woman? I didn't get what that was about. What did that have to do with the play? The scene out in the street is not in the play. She talks about it in the script, but it's not in the film. I mean, it's in the film, but it's not in the scene in the street that's in the film is only spoken about in the play, where she has the problem with the policeman, and she sends her manager out to deal with it. Levy never messed around with her girlfriend.
Right.
They flirted with each other, but that didn't happen. I felt like they just threw that in, just, you know.
Yeah.
Everything is, you know, sex is hot nowadays.
Yeah.
Speaking of hot, did you see Regé last night on Saturday Night Live?
I did not.
He smoldered.
Okay. I may have to go to YouTube. So I can get through the car accident and on because it took less time than describing it. I think that's why they did that from my film.
Describe it.
In Ma Rainey, they added the car accident stuff in the street because it took less time than actually talking about it in the play.
No, I don't think that's why they did it. I think they just needed to get out of the Dad Blasted studio and everything was happening in the studio. I mean, come on, let's be for real. August's plays are hard to translate to film because they are so talky.
Right.
You know, and there are and films today are action films. So they needed to put something in there that showed some sort of action, people moving. It's called motion pictures. So they put the scene with them moving through the lobby. They put the scene with them outside on the street with the car. They wanted to show the Dad Blasted vintage car. And then they put a sex scene in there because they wanted to show some action. Otherwise, the whole movie is this.
And the murder. So August Wilson is really interesting that he talked a lot about something that Antaeus talks a lot about. You've been involved in the conversations, and that's that he wrote very specifically for very specific time periods and made people as granular as possible, made the situations as granular as possible, because by doing that, you actually allow the plays to become more universal. And as Bill likes to say, that's what makes classics a classic. They become universal, that everybody can find something in them to understand and hold on to. And since you've done 4 of his plays, and you know how specific they are, how I mean, I think that's why his plays are so wordy, is because he's trying to find the very minutia of the quotidian of daily life. How is that
He
to
is
play?
one of the most difficult people to memorize because he says the same thing 4 different ways sometimes in the same speech.
Right.
It's almost like Meisner, you know. You take my pencil? No, I won't take your pencil. Would you take my pencil? No, I would. I mean, it's just back and forth, back and forth. It's the same thing over and over and over and over again. Only he'll change a word here and shift it over there. Right. And you can get in a loop. And I've seen that. I was on stage with Roscoe Lee Brown, and Roscoe got in the loop.
Wow. But it's that kind of repetition exercise, that Meisner technique, that makes the people feel like a real conversation to me, I think, in many ways. But do you find when you walk off stage and talk to people after a performance that they do feel the sort of universality of the plays themselves after they leave the theater?
No, to be honest, I kind of avoid people after I do a show. I really don't want to hear what people have to say, to tell you the honest to God's truth. I've spilled it all on the stage. I just want to either hang out with my buds backstage, have a glass of wine, or go home. Mm-hmm. I'm not, because people always have an opinion about how they might want to do the part or what they think, or they might criticize somebody in the show. And I'm, and me, I'm going to fight back. So, yeah, I'm not really, no.
Okay, so let me go at this a different way. Because you're not going to give me the answer I want, because you're going to fight back. I like that about you. You do, I mean, he does talk, in a lot of his speeches and his writing, other than the plays themselves, he talks about how he thinks the specifics lead to universality, just as I think Shakespeare or the experience of living through the repetition of a Eugene O'Neill play, that leads to the universal sense of those plays. Do you feel that in August Wilson, that he creates a bigger whole by making things so so granular, so repetitious, so thick?
I'm not sure what you're aiming at, Kitty, to be absolutely honest. I think he writes fascinating characters. He puts them in interesting situations, and the follow through is there. By the mere fact that he's dealt with this cycle where it's every 10 years, so to speak. And basically it's the same people kind of related to some of the people who were in the play before, is part of what makes his plays interesting, because all the characters seem to have a backstory to one of the other plays. But what I do like about his work is, or the fact that he's become so popular, is that people who are not, let's say, people of color, can look at them and identify with them. But I don't think it has anything to do with repeating lines and people going into a loop. I think that's just a style of writing that he has. I mean, every playwright has their own style, and I think that's his style. To be honest, I'm from Pennsylvania, and Philadelphia, which isn't that far from Pittsburgh. And some of the syntax that he uses in his plays, I don't know anybody who talks like that.
No, although Philly and Pittsburgh are pretty different, but
Well,
yeah.
that's what I'm saying, you know, but I don't know anyone who phrases things pretty much the way he has his characters talking. Not everybody can play August Wilson, just like not everybody can do Shakespeare.
That's true.
There's a rhythm to his plays, and it can come off stilted if you can't get into the rhythm of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think that's why, you know, I've heard some white directors get upset because they say, you know, they would love to direct an August Wilson play, and get upset because they feel like they're being what's the word? Oh God, that's what happens when you get old. Those words, they're in there somewhere, but you can't find them in the file. They don't get they feel like they would love the opportunity, but they feel like they would get a backlash if they would direct an August Wilson play. I have seen August Wilson's plays directed by a couple of white directors, and they do miss the mark.
Well, I think there's a reason why he wouldn't let, he had a possibility of films of a couple of his plays that he didn't allow to be made because they would never give him a black director to direct those films.
But I don't feel like a white director can't direct it. But I'm just saying the ones that I've seen have missed the mark. And I think it's because they haven't done a certain kind of homework, which is cultural.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. That's interesting.
In other words, from where I'm sitting, we know just about everything about y'all, but you all know very little about us. Because I've been watching you on television, I've been watching you in the movies, I've gone to school with you, but I've gone to dinner and I've hung out with white people, but a lot of white people haven't reciprocated on the other end. They haven't really seen a lot of black plays or black films. They haven't gone to schools with a lot of African American students. They don't usually sit at our lunch table. And they haven't gone to dinner in our houses. So they don't have that kind of, they haven't been immersed in the culture, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Of course it does. Yeah, makes great sense.
Thank you so much, Saundra McClain and Kitty Swink, for that scintillating conversation. Please join us for more book clubs. We have lots of conversations for you to take part in. And I'm Bill Proctor, wishing you well. Thanks.